23rd of October 2016, we flew from Sydney to Queenstown. The next day we would take the steamship down to Walter Peak. It was raining and the cloud base was quite low. But I still love watching the old steam engines, the smell of the hot oil and the steam. And the scenery, both to port and to starboard, was quite spectacular. Walter Peak is a station about 12 miles down the lake. They have a nice old tea house and restaurant there where we're going to have lunch, and the view from up the top across the lake was superb. After lunch, we all wandered across to the farm because they run this as a commercial farm and they run sheep on these mountains. They have to have good sheepdogs to do it, and they show us a great example of running up some sheep, even though one of them wasn't too cooperative. Just watch the way the dogs work. We also had an example of shearing.
Now this technique of shearing is not something you learn overnight. It can take 3-4 weeks of shearing short just to master the art of getting a wild sheep. In a way, you're fast enough to make a living from it.
And later in the afternoon, we headed back up to Queenstown. We booked a coach trip down to Milford Sound. The first 2 hours were just to get down to Te Ana.
Head in the clouds, that is within the boundaries of the park, but we don't actually enter into the Fiordland National Park itself until about 30 or 40 minutes after we leave Te Ana after our short break.
After the break at Te Ana, we started heading up into the mountains.
Okay, down there you might catch a glimpse of the Eglinton River down there to our left. And we're just climbing up into the Eglinton Valley. We'll be stopping very shortly at a place called the Mirror Lakes.
Unfortunately, due to ducks and also a little bit of breeze, there weren't very good reflections.
Not an awful lot of water coming down. So that's Falls Creek. Not an awful lot of water coming down at the moment. It's
We kept climbing up through the valley towards the Homer Tunnel.
So the tunnel you can see in front of us, it's now controlled by traffic lights. Okay, and it is 1.2 kilometres long, or about 3/4 of a mile long. All right, and it's carved through the solid cliff face. It's an unlined tunnel, and it drops down. So it drops down at a gradient of 1 in 10. So it's a reasonably steep drop down. Structure built at this end of the tunnel is to protect the tunnel from avalanche. It's a fairly recent addition. It's only been done in the last sort of 5 years. But we come out into the Cleddau Valley.
This is just a superb valley. Further down, the bus stopped to allow us to go for a walk down to a place called the Chasm. Lovely track walking into it. And we'll follow this valley the whole way down until we arrive at Milford Sound. This has got to be one of the most scenic wharfs in the world. And of course, we had to take the opportunity to take some photographs. We had lunch booked out on the boat as it sailed down the Sound. It was a bit warmer and drier inside, but the scenery is too spectacular to stay inside. We went out to the ocean. It's a good 2 meter swell running. Then we turned back in as one of the other boats. It takes overnight tours down the coast. It was heading out to sea. The view as we headed back into the Sound was picture postcard. And because of the rain, all the waterfalls were running. Rain didn't make much difference to the New Zealand fur seals, happily asleep on a rock. This waterfall was tremendous, and they actually nosed the boat in to the spray at the bottom, but I decided my camera was worth more than the view. So after a couple of hours, we arrived back into Milford Sound. On the way back on the bus, the weather cleared. We got some nice photographs as we're going up the various lakes. Being Steve's birthday, we were having lunch at the skyline up the top of the gondola. Certainly beats walking up. The restaurant has spectacular views. We could also look down to the Queenstown Golf Club where we had played golf the previous day. Got to be one of the most scenic courses in the world. And of course, up here, the big and bungee jumping. Steve and Julie decided to do the luge run. Julie hooning as usual. Steve got held up by some very slow people. Then he came back down again with Thomas on board. He seemed to be enjoying it. The next day I drove up to Omarama. I couldn't miss coming to this part of the world and not going to the gliding centre. Much activity. The climb's a bit low, so I drove on up through Twizzle to see if we could actually see Mount Cook, but it's mixed up in the clouds. On the way back from there I drove up to have a look at Ben O'Howe. I did a lot of work around here when I was building the flight simulator sceneries for the area. This was the last day the whole family were to be together, so we decided to go out to lunch at Glenorchy at the northern end of the lake. The wind here got up when we got as far as the town, and here is the shortest railway in New Zealand. It's about 100 metres long from the jetty to the little storing shed. The wind might be up, but the jet boats were off up the river. Now this would be a nice place to have your boat moored, wouldn't it?
Oh, that's the way Grandad plays.
We had lunch at the hotel with the beautiful backdrop. When we drove back to Queenstown, we had a walk around the town and had coffee and just looked out at the beautiful view. On the way back to the house, we went by the Shotover River and Gorge to do more jet boating. this is as close as we got. Sue and I am very keen to take a photograph of the bridge across the gorge. And then back to the house. This is a very nice house with great views out into the mountains. Next morning we left and drove up through Wanaka and then up along the side of the lakes and then cut across to the neck and up the Makarora Valley, which is absolutely superb, up to the Haas Pass, then down to the coast, then along the coast to Fox Glacier, and then on to Franz Josif Glacier. The views through the Makarora were absolutely superb. And once we get over the Haas Pass, we head down towards the west coast. Once heading up the coast, we came to Knight's Point, which has a memorial to the opening of the road. It's only 50 years ago. Very nice views. When we got to Franz Josif, we had booked ourselves into a walking tour up to the bottom of the glacier. We took some of the back tracks, then came back onto the main track up. We have to walk a bit further these days because the glacier has retreated a lot in the last 6 or 8 years. Soon we left the main track and followed the guide along up through the rocks. It's very easy in this valley to lose your sense of scale, especially when you see the large ice cave and bridge, which will probably collapse in the next couple of months. Again, if you're looking up the top, there are 2 dots going across. They are helicopters. Give you an idea of the scale. Di was with another group and they went off to have a look at this beautiful waterfall. Next day we decided to do the Fox Glacier and we took a walk through to the viewing point. A really nice trek and the view to the top was quite good. From here we headed back down onto the walking track. And headed up along the valley floor. There are many rockfalls, and the track has to be changed every time one of these happens. The climb up to the viewing point is very steep and very rough, and you're not allowed to stop because of the rocks falling. Again, it's hard to understand the scale. The black is still all ice, it's just got soil and rocks in it. Also, to get a sense of scale of the valley, from here, we drove from the Fox Glacier up the coast and into Greymouth. We booked into the hotel at Greymouth, and then we went for a walk along the river frontage just across the road from the hotel. There are two reasonably new bridges, one for the road, one for the rail, and the old piers from the old bridge are still there. Looking out towards the sea, it's so sad to see the wharfs not being used. This was a very busy shipping port in its day. Quite sad, although I did like the murals painted on the wall at the newspaper building. The other thing we wanted to do was to figure out where the railway station was for the following morning. The next day was to take us on the Tranz Alpine railway from Greymouth to Christchurch. This goes across down through a series of valleys into gorges and then comes into the flat country and brings you in to Christchurch. It's about a 5 or 6 hour trip. We had to drop the car off, and basically it's a matter of just dropping the keys in. Then we waited for our train to arrive. And soon we're on our way. We left the Grey River and then we head across to Moama. Unfortunately, it was raining very heavily and the views of the lake there were not very clear. Soon we're climbing up a river valley, very steep on each side, and so we arrive at the Arthur's Pass township. There used to be about 200 railway people employed here. Now I think there's 5. Soon we enter the tunnel, and this will take us into the Glaciers Pass on the eastern side. From here we follow the valley basically the whole way down to the flatlands. Just superb scenery. Soon we head into the gorge and follow the gorge along. This whole railway is pretty impressive, as is the gorge. Before long, rigging down onto the plains. And from there, just an hour or so into Christchurch. The next day was set aside to walk around Christchurch that had been destroyed in 2010 and 2011 by earthquakes. There are various buildings under demolition, lots of cranes across the sky where new buildings are going up. And the planners knew the first thing they had to do was to get a town centre, so they created a shopping centre called the Restart Shopping Centre from storage containers. Absolutely brilliant. Nature soon starts to take over, the horse chestnut in full bloom, new gardens going in. And now they have a tram running, which gives you a tour of the town and talks about what's going on. It goes right around the city. It is still sad though to see lots of buildings with nothing going on. They either have to have improvements, or they may not have insurance claims, they may not be able to be reused. Even the old post office facade and the building behind it are not being used. This one's sitting waiting. Some buildings, I have severe doubts, will ever survive. You can see this whole wall is falling out. Correct. Probably the most disappointing of all is the cathedral, which is severely damaged. We're told there's a fight going on with the insurance company, so it may never be fixed. Interestingly, when it was being built, they were advised to build it of wood, not of stone, because of earthquakes. Nice to see the museum is all being opened up bit by bit as it gets rebuilt. But life goes on. People go about their business. The malls are open. The coffee shops have people in them. And the trams take the tourists around the city. I particularly liked the sign on the top of this building. It said, "Everything is going to be all right." We went for a walk around the botanical gardens, which of course survived, including this huge redwood. Fantastic signs of life. And of course, Christchurch is more English than England. Next day, we were getting the train up the coast, the coastal Pacific, from Christchurch up to Blenhiem. Goes past nice places like Gicora on the way to Blenhiem.
Pacific, bound for Kaikoura, Seddon, Blenhiem and Picton. My name's Willie, pleased to welcome you on board the train today. The crew today includes Katie and Rachel. Very soon one of us will come through to collect the larger portion of your barcoded boarding pass, so please have that out ready for collection.
This is quite an interesting section as it goes through some flat country, some nice arable country, and up into sheep country. It soon arrives at the coast and follows the beach and goes through many tunnels. It was only a few days after this that the railway and the road were seriously damaged in rock falls and an earthquake. And Kaikoura was actually cut off for quite some time. We went inland to Snedden, and then from Snedden we came back round to the little town of Blenhiem. From the railway station we walked 3/4 of a kilometre down to our hotel, the Scenic Hotel Marlborough, dropped our stuff off and went for a walk around town. It's a very pretty little town. And then we walked back along the river back to the hotel. Very pleasant day. Next day we had to leave Blenhiem and head up to Picton to pick up the ferry, which takes us down Marlborough Sound and across Cook Strait to Wellington. We had a leisurely morning, then went back to the railway station just before midday to pick up the train, which took us half an hour or so to get down to Picton, and we just checked our baggage was checked through to Wellington. Then we walked down to the ferry terminal. Marlborough Sound, beautiful area too. We were in a separate lounge, which is a very nice spot to put your feet up and watch the scenery going by. Soon we exited the Sound and headed across the strait to Wellington. It got too cold, so we stayed inside our lounge, quite comfortable. We drove down to the west head at the entrance to Wellington Bay, and from here you can look across and see the South Island. This reserve is known as Ataturk Bay because the bay resembles Gallipoli. And of course it's just across from the airport. We drove back into town, went for a walk along the wharf, got some lunch. Loved these, thought they were great. In the afternoon we took a drive up to the lookout. Give you great views back down around the bay and the city. Over the next couple of days, we drove up from Wellington and stopped a night at Masterton. I met up with Diane and Wendy. Then we drove up to Napier. We stayed at a very nice hotel on the waterfront. I did find it hard to get used to the very dark sand. Now Napier was destroyed in about 1930-31 by an earthquake, and it was all rebuilt in Art Deco, and it's retained all of that. So everywhere you look, everything is Art Deco. Very neat and very clean little town. Even the houses on the cliff behind the hotel were very well looked after. We went up to a lookout, allowed you to look down on the wharfs. They were very busy. But it was very windy and very cold. From Napier, the next day, I had to go through Taupo and up to Rotorua. When we arrived at Taupo, the lake was absolutely smoking with the very, very strong winds. We got some lunch and headed back on up to Rotorua. On the way there, we stopped at a place called Craters of the Moon. And this is an area where there's lots of steam and boiling mud coming out of the ground. Interesting place to visit.
Can you say hi, everyone? Hi.
Let's make good chief first.
If you're our chief, you will get to eat first, Chief Mike.
is opened in speech making. Briefly, firstly, to our Creator, the unseen one, for this beautiful evening. He then acknowledged Sky Father, Rangi, and Earth Mother, Paputuanuku. These two take care of our day. Our chief then sent thoughts to our ancestors of our tribe, we the tribe of Ngāti Whakaupē, before our chief acknowledged you. You, the visiting tribe of the living. Our chief has acknowledged firstly your two chiefs, Joe and Mike. Chief Joe and Chief Mike. We thank you for leading your tribe upon our ancient village site. We also thank you both for accepting our peace offering of rongo and for carrying the weight of your entire tribe. You are so brave to be forced into this, Chief. To you, the four winds, we are honoured to have you here upon our tribal land of Rotorua. All of your sacred lands, all of your many different speaking tongues. Welcome. On the call of our mountain, Mongo Taha, our sacred spring, Te Puna Tapu o Tūhoi, which you will all get to see. And not forgetting our great lake of Rotorua. So finally, welcome, welcome, welcome everyone.
After dinner, we went for a walk and saw the sacred spring, beautiful clear water. We spent the next morning walking around Rotorua Park, noticing that many places were fenced off. This is for safety reasons because there is steam, boiling water and hot mud. The lake at Rotorua is really beautiful. There's many activities for the tourists, from hiring boats to going out on cruises to doing heli flights. A really nice place to stop. From here we drove up to Auckland, and then from Auckland we drove up to Kerry to meet up with Neil and Brenda. In the afternoon, we were out on Neil's boat to cruise around the bay. Very nice part of the world. This is part of the Bay of Islands. It was a very pleasant afternoon. We booked into the boat taking us out to the hole in the wall in the Bay of Islands. Stopped off at Russell, and then we headed off out to sea. We had some company.
Some sort of predator will have a go at an individual dolphin, but to actually have a go at a pod of them is highly unusual. So, yeah.
There are lots of rocks around off this coast, and the one we're heading to has a hole in it. We didn't really think they were going to take the boat through it.
Reasonable lack from shelter, so we do want to take things pretty cautiously out here. Now, just at the entrance to the hull, you can see a large number of seabirds hanging around. I'm reasonably confident that's probably because we've got a small school of baitfish or similar just around the hull. Thanks, you can breathe out again now. I've made it through.
From here we started heading back towards shore. We pulled in a small island where we were able to climb to the top of the hills and have a good look round. Nicely sheltered anchorage. On the way back, we stopped in at Russell and had lunch at the Duke of Marlborough. Next morning we headed back to Auckland, and the morning after flew back to Sydney. What a fantastic 3 weeks.